Oh no! How is Georgie Boy gonna be getting out of this predicament? In today's episode of Umineko!
私のお腹の中でね。
Ew. Stop talking about bellies and wombs.
もう少しじっくりと育ちなさい。さあ、お仕置きは終わりよ。謝りなさい、母さんに。
The spiderweb released George reluctantly. Then it threw him to the ground beneath the cloudy sky.
ありがとう、母さん。
It was all George could do to get up on his hands and knees. Though he wiped the mud away and stood his ground, he still couldn't raise his head.
これまでのすべてが僕を思ってのことだったんだね。ありがとう。本当にありがとう。
そうよ。今は憎いでしょ。でもいつかきっと感謝するわ。私がどれほどあなたを愛していたかをきっと理解する。
火曜日から土曜日までの連日の塾での縛り付けも、僕を立派な男に育てようという母さんの努力だったんだね。
これもイギリスの格言よ。子供を幸福で包むことが最高の教育。
ありがとう。だから僕からも母さんにイギリスの格言を送るよ。
Alright. I'm curious about George's response to this in British.
何？
すべての木に斧を一撃ずつ加えても一本の木も切り倒せはしない。
One chop at every tree and none of them will fall.
何？それはどういう意味？
こっちの方がいいかな。学問に時間を費やしすぎることは怠惰に過ぎない。フランシス・ベーコン。
The man drenched in mud and fresh blood straightened his crooked glasses and then slowly stood up. Though he was covered in filth, his appearance had a divine quality to it, something that could only appear on a self-controlled man, not one who had merely been dozing in his mother's amniotic fluid. You guys surely love to talk about that sort of stuff, eh? About wombs and fluids and such.
僕がサヨから学んだことは数えきれない。僕は彼女の前で初めて勇気と男気と向上心とウィットとユーモアと、それからひょっぴりのおしゃれを学んだんだ。皮肉だね。今日母さんが僕を立派になったと認める要素のほぼ全てが
Okay.
母さんの教育の賜物じゃないんだ。
Courage and chivalry, ambitious and witty and humorous. And stylish.
ジョージ、あんたまだそんなことを戻してあげるわ、母さんの子宮に。そしてもう一度暖かな海で育て直してあげる。
No, that sounds disgusting. As Eva howled, another brighter red spiderweb appeared at George's feet and tried to scoop him up into the air again. However, that instant, a powerful magic circle could be seen in the area surrounding George for just a moment. Faster than he could be scooped up by the spiderweb, George jumped. And with a sharp kick of the heel and a magnificent forward flip, he cut the shackles of that spiderweb apart. Smooth movement proved that he had possessed the power to escape from those shackles all along. He had willingly allowed himself to be bound by that web.
母さんのこれまでの恩を一つずつ痛みで相殺させてもらったよ。おかげで僕も親離れがきっちりとできそうだ。必要だね、たまには親子喧嘩も。
ジョージ、私にどうしてそこまで逆らってあんな小娘と。
必要なのはやはり母さんの子離れのようだね。じゃあそろそろいいかな。
何がよ。
そろそろいいかな。反撃しても。
The curtain of spiderwebs that ever shot out in defense were all too slow. Alright, round 2. George weaved through them in an instant, and next, he was right before her eyes. If I jumped out of the way a kick, that would have knocked her feet out from under, then blocked the second half of George's double roundhouse with a high kick of her own.
母さんの習い事で一つだけ感謝しているものがあるよ。
Ooh, the martial arts, karate stuff.
それは何曜日のかしら。
長期休暇のために集中的に習わされた武道教室の数々だよ。
Yeah.
嬉しいわ、ジョージ。たった一つでも感謝してもらえるなんて。母さんは嬉しいわ。
Yeah. Her swift feet flashed like lightning. Low, 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 mid-level attack. As George's head fell forward, she caught it in both hands as though she was about to smash it against the ground. He is then met with Eva's knee as it rose like a bolt of lightning from the earth. Eva Triss using martial arts as well? Phew, phew.
ジョージも一緒に習えばもっと楽しかったわ。
そうだね、母さんと一緒に武道を学ぶ時が一番楽しかったよ。
なら今が一番楽しいんじゃない？楽しいね、ジョージ、楽しいね。
楽しいかい、母さん。息子と遊ぶのは。
楽しいわ。あなたは私の最愛の息子。私のお腹の中で優しく優しく愛してあげるわ。あなたがお腹を蹴るのさ、愛しい。
Stop it! You're gonna create more creative juices for DeviantArt fan art.
了解だ。だがその蹴りはお腹の外からになるけどね。
George buried his knee sharply into Eva's abdomen. Yeah, take that attack to your belly. An instant before she felt the pain of that fierce attack, Eva watched her son's kick with a proud smile, and then she vomited.
母さんももう年なんだから、いい加減そういう若い子向きの服は自重した方がいいんじゃないかな。
ジョージ。
Her chin still covered in vomit. Eva looked up at George in twisted anguish. She could see how pathetic her face was by her reflection in his glasses.
母さんも僕も一緒に子供時代とお別れしよう。さようなら、母さん。
The violent lightning outbreak. made time freeze. George's beautiful kick had stopped an inch from Eva's chest. However, the power of the red magic circle surrounding George had already pierced Eva's body. Though he had stopped without hitting her, blood poured out of Eva's back. No wound had been left on her chest, but the heart inside it had been struck through. Eva slumped backwards and landed in a puddle with a splash. There were no convulsions. Her life had been ended without leaving her even an instant to write about in pain.
その辺にいるんじゃないかいガブ
As he straightened his glasses, George spoke to the rose thicket behind him. Then, the pitch-black hole opened in the air, and Gob jumped out.
大したもんね。あのエヴァ・ベアトリーチェを継承前とはいえ打ち倒すなんて。
やはりいたかい余計なちょっかいを出さなくてありがとう
Okay, so I guess this is the conclusion for that conflict between him and Eva. It is interesting. It is definitely interesting. It is definitely something to think about. But yeah, I guess one thing that can be said from that is that George showed his resolve and managed to conquer his demons when it comes to Eva in this fight. So I guess that is one part of the test. I guess we shall see what will happen next.
親子水入らずで過ごせたよ
Because while this is a step further for the marriage between Shannon and George, well, this wasn't really about Shannon and George. This was about George and his mother. So, something tells me that there's a lot more to the test than just this.
まさかいなかったわよ、私は。
And the stuff between Shannon and George, that is also something that I'm really, really interested in.
今あなたが私を召喚したんだわ。
どっちでもいいさ君にお願いがあるんだ
聞く義理はあるの？
聞いてくれないのかい
His back still facing her, George reset his glasses. And the thread in his voice held the solemn presence of a king who ruled over demons. Uh-oh. His Majesty made Gob gulp. And she licked her lips before bowing respectfully to his back.
私はイケてる男が好きだけど、王女はもっと好きだわ。何なりとお命じを、魔王陛下。
I mean, let's not forget the mental, well, not mental, but the gymnastics that the witches are doing to fool their opponents, like right from the beginning, as we've seen plenty of times before. So, I wouldn't relax my back, George.
後ろ宮家の当主に憧れその夢と猛襲に生きた彼女の亡骸をふさわしい場所に安置してほしい
じゃあ、金蔵の書斎へ？
いや貴賓室がいいな屋敷の2階のあの開かずの貴賓室
あの部屋ね。了解したわ、ジョージ陛下。
Although, one thing that I'm not liking over here is, well, even with, like, what Eva went through, and the things that Eva did that were considered bad by George, I'm not really liking how much animosity George has for Eva at this point, from the looks of it. It's It is something to think about because something tells me that there is more to why Eva dislikes the idea of Shannon being the one to marry George. That it's not just a thing of, oh, I want my son to do as I say, that he's my son and I'm the doting mother, and the stuff about how, like, getting the headship with herself and the son being recognized as the headship and such. It feels more than just that. Like, George had shown glimpses of trying to understand her mother, although very, very little. Most of it we've seen like a lot of pain coming from George because of the lessons of the past, and not so much him trying to understand her. But these are my thoughts for right now. I'm definitely gonna have to think about it. Like, so far, I'm seeing good stuff, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that this fight came with a sense of love. Of family love and such. That is... I think that is the one thing that I can say about this that I'm not liking right up here. Like, it wouldn't really connect. Like, it wouldn't, it doesn't really have much to do with Shannon and George to have their relationship go forward, but it's more so like having love for your family, which this fight definitely didn't display that. Like, maybe more so from the mother than George. Like, he wasn't, like, he was pained, but he was not grateful for at least the good moments that George had with his mother. Like, we didn't focus on that. We focused mostly on the bad stuff, like how Eva influenced George in a bad way. But we didn't focus on how Eva influenced George in a good way. We didn't focus on that. Gab approached Eva's corpse and lightly tapped the ground with her right heel. When she did, a large hole opened up, swallowed up both Gab and the corpse, and closed. After a while, a small hole opened in the air, and the stuff Eva always carried, which was marked with the one-winged eagle that symbolized the head of the Umineko family, was spat out into a puddle. Because the corpse would no longer have any use for it. There is a little reaction there. George slowly approached that staff and stepped down hard on the tip. When he did, the staff spun violently into the air, and after passing by the blue moon which honored the Demon King, it flew into George's outstretched hand. The instant he grasped it, another fierce bolt of lightning struck nearby, and by the time the flash faded, the staff he was holding had become a spray of gold butterflies, and disappeared. It was as though George had held the staff up to the heavens and crushed it out of existence.
これで僕はノルマクリアだ。次の人に番を譲るよ。
自分の母さんを手にかけるなんて。
自分を世界で一番最初に愛してくれる人であり、そして一番最後に決別すべき人だ。それが家を出るということだよ。これが僕が作用をめとるために見せられる勇気だ。
ジョージ様。あっぱれなり後ろ宮ジョージ。まずは見事であるぞ。
Yeah, like for example, I'm not entirely sure about what George said there. It is something that I have to think about myself, but well, at least this test showed his resolve that, like, no matter where George came from, he had a resolve. He began it and he ended it for his relationship. So that is one thing.
たとえゲーム上のこととはいえ、駒のこととはいえ、自分の母親を殺すのは愉快なことではないね。しかし、それが君たちの課す試練だと言うから、僕は答えたよ。
He stared at the two demons. The demons looked at each other, then showed their surprise with their no familiar exaggerated gestures.
素晴らしいわ。なんて見事なのかしら、ゼタル。
そうだね、フルフル。ジョージ君の決意は本物だ。どうやら僕は君を見誤っていたようだね。謝るよ。許してほしい。
George chose not to go along with this almost theatrical conversation. He just quietly looked down upon the game, found the piece representing his mother, which was right next to his, and tipped it over. And this was the child his Aparafufu had said to him. For the love of each other, take the life of another. It was similar to the game within Beto's fourth game, where they were each given 3 options as part of a test to select the next family unit. However, a pair of lovers would never abandon each other's lives, so they were automatically left with just the option of sacrificing the life of another instead. In fact, it was merciful that the demons hadn't ordered them to take the lives of everyone other than themselves. And besides, he only meant taking those lives as pieces on the board. For the versions of themselves to whom the game board was the only world, this was a tragic parasite. But for these ones who sat around the game board in this witch's tea room, it was nothing more than a movement of the pieces, representing George's will to overcome his parents. Well, I guess thematically speaking, the fight was about overcoming his parents, not necessarily killing them. But I cannot really agree with the sentiment of, oh, in order for a relationship to go, one love must go down. Like, you have to completely to disconnect yourself from your parents in order to go down your own life. Like, in a normal situation, you would still love your parents no matter what, even as you go on your own with your partner. That's definitely something that I'm questioning. Now, because of Eva in the situation, it made things more difficult for George. So, given this sad conclusion to how things went between them, I guess that is what George had to go through, in that sense. However, even if it was just a single life within one of an infinite number of fragment worlds, the fact remained that the demons had forced him to take it. George appeared to have distanced himself from the events of the demon's game board, but Jessica still seemed to resist the idea of stealing another person's life, even if it was only their life as a game piece.
おじけづいたか？いえ、バトラさんの望むベアトリーチェはこんなことでは臆したりしません。
さあ、次は誰が試練に挑戦を？誰でもいい。次なる犠牲者を選び出してほしい。
誰でもいい。次なる挑戦者は名乗り出てほしい。
I mean, is that really it for George's Nah, there's gotta be more to it. Like, yeah, okay, we're gonna go through each one of them. But I assume that we're gonna go back to George, because if that was the one and only test that he had to go through in order to prove himself, I'm not really pleased about that. Like, I definitely want more out of George. I want more out of Shannon. And I want more out of both of them to see how they go through this stuff. Like, if this is it for George, I'm not convinced yet. Yeah.
そうなるわ。ならばおめでとう。後ろ宮ジョージ。
あなたとあなたの愛する人の恋の成就へ至る扉の鍵を。僕たちは今こそ授けん。
待てよ。
As the demons delightedly named George as the victor, they were interrupted by the next challenger. Alright. Like, I can't say that I would have been really happy with that kind of conclusion, that only George did his test and George was the one to win that. Are we not gonna test Shannon? Are we not gonna test both of them? Like, that would be the only thing that was tested in order to make the relationship go forward? Eh.
ジェシカさん、次は私だぜ。いいぜ、やってやろう。私だってカノン君のこと半端に考えてるわけじゃねえってこと見せてやろう。
As usual, this year's family conference was getting bogged down. Everyone had decided to cool their heads for a moment, and a short break had been agreed upon. And the four siblings would say whatever they wanted. But Natsu and Kyrie, for example, were outsiders, and found it difficult to speak freely in this sort of atmosphere. A conference where you aren't allowed to say what you want can be tiring even as you just sit there quietly. Even Kyrie couldn't help letting out a deep sigh. This was the second floor hallway of the mansion. Rudolf had wanted to be alone during the break, so she had felt like doing the same, and had drifted up the stairs to reach this place. Her expression was less tightly controlled than it was when her husband was around. Kyrie wore a tired look that she didn't often show. And I guess another thing that I wanted to see out of George's first trial before was Shannon's reaction to this, like how she feels about what she saw between George and Eva. Like, all she did was just call George's name. George-sama, and that's it. Like, I kind of wanted to see how she feels about that. It's actually the same reaction. She did drop down in tears during the fourth test and all. But here, we didn't get to see her reaction to that, like how she feels about this. Which, I'm hoping that we will, like, after a while. But now, we are right over here. She pressed her forehead against the cool window glass. I need to regain my spirit and support my husband, even if I'm not allowed to speak. And that's the duty that I want.
誰?
Oh. She suddenly sensed another person. Turned around. and saw Jessica standing at the other end of the hallway.
あら、ジェシカちゃんじゃない。ゲストハウスに行ったんじゃなかったの？
ちょっと本を取りに自分の部屋へ戻ってたんです。
そう、ゲストハウスに戻るところ？
はい、そうです。
嫌な雨ね。風はだいぶ強いのかしら。
今は比較的弱いみたいです。
As Kay looked out the window, Jessica watched her back, looking agitated.
キリエおばさん、ごめんよ。運がなかったと思ってくれ。
Eh?
ゼパル？ジェシカの運命のルーレットはキリエを選んでしまったわ。
どうするんだいジェシカ。ルーレットはキリエを選んだけど、それを拒否して再びルーレットを回すのも君の勝手さ。試練に捧げるのは誰の命でも問わないのだから。
It doesn't matter who's like. Wait, what? Jessica wasn't like George. And George had willingly chosen Eva to be his sacrifice. To signify his separation from his old life, so that he could step into a new life married to Sean. However, Jessica hadn't thought of any particular target. So, she had left it up to the roulette of fate. Wait, what? Ayuki. So wait, they're actually doing the test in accordance to the sacrificing of the epitaph? Well, I mean, you're telling me that George had a choice too. He could have just chosen anyone else in order to win his test. It's just that he has chosen Eva because it would also make it so that he would confront his mother about the marriage and such. But he didn't necessarily have to do so. Like, if... Wait a minute, I'm not... Like, what is this test for Jessica, though? Like, what does this even matter? Like, you have to take another person's life, and that way it will show your resolve in continuing the relationship with Kanon. That is tested? How about testing your love for Kanon with Natsu instead? The roulette was nothing very grandiose. She had simply walked around that round, imposing a rule on herself saying that the first person she met would be chosen as a sacrifice. And so, the roulette of fate had brought her to Kyrie. Yeah, well, you know, I guess when I think of this, like what I'm discovering right over here, it is similar to the fourth test. Yeah, they had their own test for the headship, but it was also like another means of getting George and Jessica killed for the sake of the epitaph. None of them got the headship. And I guess same case over here. I wonder if this whole thing is gonna end up in getting a lot of people killed, but in the end, the trial is gonna amount to absolutely nothing. Like, nobody's gonna win, everybody's gonna die, and that's gonna be pretty much it. In which case, well, it would be in accordance to Beatrice and how she does her games, in the sense that she's basically fooling with the humans in order to get them killed. And this is just another means for Beatrice to kill the humans in order for the epitaph to succeed and such, but I don't want to think of it like that. I want to just think about the trial right over here as a means of showing your love, like your resolve for your love and such. And this... I'm not really liking it for Jessica. And I cannot say that I'm really liking it for George either at this point. But I'm gonna be thinking about this. Of course, there was nothing forcing her to keep to that rule. However, it was the rule that she had decided upon. And she didn't want to break it now. Because, okay, it sounds random and such, and I wouldn't call this like a proper test in order to go forward with your relationship with Kanon, to show that you truly love Kanon. But who knows? Maybe there is a connection between Jessica and Kyrie that in their conflict it would show Jessica's determination to go forward with Kanon. Even though, like, in retrospect, you wouldn't think much of Jessica and Kyrie. They are as far away from each other as you can see them. You don't see them talk to each other, like, at all, even. Now that she was participating in this demon's game, this was the one bit of justice that she could cling to. Right now, she could attack that and protect it back. But Jessica still wasn't able to fully resolve herself. Noticing Jessica's strange silence, Kyrie had turned around. That unprotected back was already gone. And Jessica realized that her hesitation had cost her her own first chance. She had taken on this demon's game to prove her love for Kanon. However, would it really be alright to sell her whole soul to demons? For the sake of love? You know, this is something that I've been thinking about before as well. Even before this particular moment. Like, sorry Beatrice, but given the way I think of you and your past, and how you definitely have been hurt in the past, I don't know if I can think of you as a proper person to test these people for the sake of love. I don't know what goes through your mind, but something tells me that your way of viewing some things, while at times it is beautiful, you have also been hurt before, so you may have some biases. And I don't know about the way you are testing these kids in order to show their love for their partners. At least for Jessica and George. For Shannon and Kanon, you may view things differently, and that may be something. But I don't know about George and Jessica. The way you test them. Like, I don't know if I can really trust your ability to truly test true love for them at this point. Sorry, Beatrice, but it is the way it is. Not wanting to let George, who had already come to terms with the situation, get any more of a lead on her, she had energetically consented to this demon's game, but her heart still wasn't ready. Yeah, you know, I'm basically I'm basically in Jessica's camp over here. I'm not really liking this.
キリエおばさんにこんな質問まずいかな。
何？ジェシカちゃんが私に質問なんて珍しいわね。答えられるものだといいんだけれど。
実は私好きな人がいるんです。
あら、そうなの？それは素敵ね。まさか恋の相談なの？
そんなところです。
いいわよ。私でよければ力になるわ。
Oh. Okay. Okay. Well, I have my my worry feelings right over here. Maybe we can get something out of this. Maybe what Jessica needs is some thoughts, some opinions from someone who has experienced love. That way, Jessica may learn from Kyrie what it means to truly love a person and such, which would definitely be good for her. It's not just about, hey, I want to kill you for the sake of going forward with my partner in life. Bam, bam, and that's it. Hopefully we can get something out of this. To show that Jessica is growing in her pursuit of love.
ありがとうございます。実はそれで、
まだ片思いなの？
いえ、そこから両思いになりたてって感じのとこです。ただ結ばれるには試練があって。
試練？何それ？
私たちともう一組の恋人たちがいて、争わなくちゃならないんです。
三角関係？
Kinda.
それとも四角関係？複雑そうね。それで？
勝った方の恋人同士しか結ばれない。そういう複雑なことになってるんです。つまり
嫌な話ね。相手を踏み台にしてしかどちらも成就できない恋なのね。
はい。自分たちが結ばれれば相手が破綻します。そして逆もしかりです。
質問の趣旨が大体分かったわ。こういうことでしょ？人は幸せになるためにどこまで他者を踏み台にすることが許されるのかでしょ？
It was once again apparent just how smart Kitty was. She immediately figured out the question that Jessica wanted to ask most.
戦わなければ自動的に相手が勝ってジェシカちゃんたちは負けになる。しかし戦って勝てば相手を破綻させることになる。どちらも嫌な話ね。でも聞くまでもなく答えは決まっているわ。
はい。
Kyrie giggled. If she wasn't willing to commit to her love, then that would show the measure of their relationship. Yet that was the case. She should just let the other pair of lovers win. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there is the whole thing with Asumu from before. Like, we've definitely seen Kyrie have Evi on Asumu. And, well, Asumu died, and now she is with Rudolf. I cannot say that I know 100% what went between the three of them, but it was probably something nasty, and I don't know, like, I have this feeling that what Kyrie went through was, like, it had its flaws. I don't know what those flaws are. I mean, we do have envy, so there's that. So there could be the danger in my eyes of Kyrie imparting wisdom for Jessica that is flawed and sinful. That it's not gonna be something really healthy for Jessica. Like, at this point, I cannot see Kyrie as a good role model for love. But you know, I am saying this out of my impressions of Kyrie. Maybe what she's gonna say over here is gonna prove useful to Jessica in a healthy way. And who knows, maybe Kyrie is gonna say some stuff that is gonna prove useful to Jessica that Kyrie wished she would have chosen to do before. Like, as a learn from your mistakes and not repeat your, like, not have the kids learn the same mistakes from your parents. Basically, not transfer your chaotic anger and such to the next generation, which is in complete opposite of what Kasumi went through. Like, basically throwing all your anger onto the next generation. Like, Kyrie would be the better person in that aspect of doing the opposite of what Kasumi did. And just keep your negative past in check and let Jessica learn what Kyrie should have done. So, let's see. However, if this was a love she couldn't abandon the victory either. So, she had an option but to fight. In the end, Jessica's hesitation was caused by guilt, or forcing the others to split apart as a result of her inevitable decision.
やっぱり私は甘えているでしょうか。
そうね、甘えてるわ。
でも自分たちが結ばれるために誰かを踏み台にするなんて、そんなの辛いです。
じゃあジェシカちゃんは恋のお相手を諦める？
それは
断言するわ。その方が辛いわよ。地獄を這うことになる。生涯ね。
Hardness had entered Kiria's gaze.
私は6歳だったから当時は何もわからなかったけれど、遺品の中にお母さんの手記があったわ。それは日記のようなものか。どちらかというと随想録ね。日記よりももっとアバウトなものよ。亡くなってすぐにそれを見つけて読んだけど、その意味を理解できるようになるには長い時間と私の成長を待たなければならなかったわ。なるほど。キリエの夫婦仲についての悩みが記されていたというのか。あれは完全にお母さんの呪い帳よね。その中身は6歳の私がずっと漠然と感じていた疑問を次々に表解させてくれたわ。
When I was 6, it seemed as though my parents were very close and had no problems. And though I did think it odd that Oni-chan lived separately when he was meant to be a part of our family, and I did wonder why he only came home every once in a while, I accepted it as the way things were.
アスムのことは知らなかったのか。お兄ちゃんが誰もいない時に話してくれたような気がするけど、小学校前の私にそれが理解できるはずがない。
When no one was around.
だって写真すらない相手よ。お母さんはアスムさんの写った写真のすべてをお兄ちゃんに送って、家の中には一切残さなかったそうだから。
In front of Angie, even in front of Bella, who only rarely came home, Kiria smiled and never faltered. If she hadn't written her thoughts in that notebook, Angie would probably never have known them. Rudolf had been particularly popular with the opposite sex since his school days. A typical playboy. Audacious, over the top, and yet not lacking a little gentleness towards women. He had probably built up a formula for getting women to like him. Plenty of women approached him, using various seductive tricks to try to win his favor. Rudolf probably enjoyed that more than anyone. Since the beginning, love had been a game to Rudolf. He never thought of it as a trial and error process to find a single life partner. That can be a problem. I guess so. We didn't think of it like that. In being such a playboy, I guess you never get to learn like the nuances of love that would come out of hardships and such. It's like, hey, I'm a playboy, hey, I am cool and such. And then you get a girl that you like, you marry them with not much of a problem, and in turn, it may end up that Rudolf may not learn some stuff that would be like common sense in love and such.